Well, good evening, folks. We're here at nighttime for once. Instead of our usual Sunday morning slot, I decided to jump in tonight. A little ahead of schedule. Usually I'm here on Sunday mornings, but I decided to change it up a little bit just to give a few people that can't usually partake in the live Sunday shows a chance to pop in and perhaps catch an evening episode of Addicted to Gear. So I hope you guys are doing well. Today's show is show 242. We're going to be on for, I don't know, an hour or so, maybe a little more. We'll see how things go. And I think I caught a lot of you off guard today because I think most of you guys are used to the Sunday slot, and I usually give enough warning. But this weekend was a little bit all over the place because I was traveling earlier this week. I missed a show last week because I wasn't well. I had the flu. So I decided, what the hell, let's shake it up a little bit and change it up and see who pops in today. It's all good. Whether or not we have a big group or a small group doesn't really make a difference as long as you're into the topics that we're going to be talking about today. As per usual, if you want to chat and you want to comment, all you need to do is you need to subscribe. If you're not subscribed, you won't be able to chat on the live shows. So just hit the subscribe button, and about a minute later, you'll be able to jump in and chat. All right, it's as simple as that. Obviously, there's a poll question today. I always put up a poll question. I try and be consistent with the questions and have one ready every week. So if you have an opportunity to jump into the community section of the Addicted to Gear YouTube page, you'll find the poll question there. And you'll be able to answer that, and we'll look at it a little later on this evening. I hope you guys are all doing well. As I mentioned, I was out of town earlier this week. I just flew in from Florida about a day ago. I was surprised and taken aback by all of the snow that we're getting here in Montreal. It's crazy. We got hit with a bunch of snow, and tonight, I think, well, actually tomorrow morning, we're going to be hit with another probably 2 feet of snow. So I spent the entire day shoveling snow, which isn't fun. I'd rather be playing guitar, I tell you that much. But it's done at least until tomorrow, and then we'll see what happens then. Now, I want to say hi to everybody that's already here. First of all, I want to say congratulations to Jack, our good friend. Jack Collins says he's sitting and celebrating his 32nd anniversary. Congratulations, Jack. That's a big number, my friend. That's great to hear. I wish you and your better half all the best, and I hope you're celebrating in style. And I'm glad you took time to maybe pop in a little bit and stick around if you feel like it. Let's say hi to the other people that are already here. So we have MFN here. He says, good evening, Tony and all. I'm on the East Coast time for the next few months. We have Steven. Our good friend Steven is here. Hey, Steven, how's it going, my friend? Hope all is well on your side. Cushman is here as well. Nice to see you jump in and join us this Saturday. Ian's Guitar Shack, nice to see you as well. Our good friend Jean-Pierre is here. He says, bingo, the man's alive. Yeah, I'm alive for now. I still haven't fully recuperated from my flu that I had a couple weeks back. I'm still coughing from time to time, but I got my, liquid here to help me soothe the throat. So I'll be able to talk throughout the live show without any incidents, hopefully. David is here. Time Surfing Alien Presley California Customs is here. He says, sup fam? I hope you're doing well, Presley. I hope you got some interesting projects underway as well. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit later. Wayne is here. Wayne McDonald. Wayne McConnell. Why did I say McDonald? I saw the Mc and I automatically think burgers. I don't know why. Sorry about that, Wayne. Jimmy Z is here. Sup, fellas? Hey, Tony. Hey, Jimmy. What's happening? And MFN has a question, I think. He says, doubling up and doing a show tomorrow morning. The morning is when I can strum along. No can do in the evening. I'm not going to be doing the show tomorrow, just so you guys know. I'm actually busy. I'm helping my daughter move. And we're going to be doing all of this during a snowstorm. So it's not going to be fun, but it's something that we need to do. And unfortunately, everything's booked for tomorrow. So I decided to come online and share some, gear talk with you guys today instead. So hopefully that works. I'm going to adjust my chair because I'm a little bit low. I want to start off by asking you guys what's up. It's been a little while. And I want to know if you guys have been good over the last couple of weeks while I've been gone. Have you guys acquired anything? I know some of you have. But I'm always interested to hear what's going on your side of things. And obviously, if you're looking at any kind of gear, any kind of acquisition, maybe a new guitar, a new amplifier, pedal, anything else, doesn't have to be those particular items. I want to hear about it. Let me know and see, maybe we can share some feedback with the group here. I'm playing my little rocker. This is my custom built Telecaster, candy apple red with a little sparkle in it, double bound body and rosewood neck. I showed you guys this guitar before. It's nothing new. Kind of have my own very own custom shop little neck plate there, because I figured, what the hell, it's a custom job, custom built guitar, so I figured, why not? I don't have the guitar in the shot all that much. I think I'm a little bit too low today to get the guitar in the shot, but I think you guys have seen this one before. So if you have any questions while we're on today, just put a little question mark in front of your comments so I know it's meant for me. I think most of you guys that are here regularly know the drill. If you're new here, don't be shy. We're always happy to welcome newcomers and hear what you have to say as well. My knees hurt says a rare Saturday evening show. Exactly. Just giving other people an opportunity to jump in. Good luck with the move, says NFM. Absolutely. Moving is no fun. You know, you guys have probably been through it. Some of you probably have been through it. You know how it is, especially when you're not the one moving. But, I have a feeling it'll be an interesting day tomorrow, to say the least. If it wasn't for the 2 feet of snow, I wouldn't really worry about it all that much. But with the snow coming, I'm not sure what to expect. We'll make the best of it, though. Presley says he's using 3D printing to make prototypes of guitar nuts with my logo in the nut. It looks cool. I'll email you a couple of pictures. That's interesting. Now, Presley, let me know, is the material that you use, because we have a 3D printer at work, and I never actually thought about printing guitar nuts with it. How does that work? I mean, as far as I know, the material that you use when you do 3D prints is not very durable. It's very fragile. Like, you can easily snap it and break it. So how does it work for a guitar nut? I'm curious to hear how you actually go about using it. And is it like, would it work as an actual nut? Interesting idea. Didn't think of that. Jimmy Z says, I have had a EVH Wolfgang Standard for a while. Battleship Gray, saw a replacement body, brand new, eBay in Northern Lights. Changed that out today. Restring tonight. What what color is Northern Lights? I'm not really sure, Jimmy. Sometimes they use these weird names to describe colors and it doesn't tell me anything. Battleship gray, I can picture. Northern Lights, I'm assuming it's some kind of a maybe dark purple or blue or something like that. Interesting. That's for you, JP. Shane made it in. He says he's lurking. Hey, Shane, thank you for coming. Shane also mentioned that he purchased another Telecaster earlier today. He sent me some images and it looks really cool, but he says he doesn't think he's going to keep it because the neck seems to be a little thick for his liking. He's not sure about whether or not it's a keeper, but it looks like a really cool guitar, Shane. Maybe just give it a little bit more time, break it in before you decide to flip it. Give it a chance. Let us know how you feel about it in a couple of days. Maybe you'll change your mind. Alonzo is here. Alonzo White. I think that's a new, maybe Alonzo's here for the first time. I haven't seen that name around too many times. He says, I have a problem seeing the front markers on the side of my neck. Is there anything to do to make those little dots easier to see? That is fret markers. Okay, so fret markers on the side of your neck. One cool thing you can do, and some people do this, some companies do this actually, is you can drill them out and you can actually put in some glow-in-the-dark dots. You can actually buy the material and it's actually pretty cool. Some companies like Charvel do that on some models. I like it. I think it's a great idea because when you're in a darker scenario, like when you're on stage and then it gets dark all of a sudden, you have a hard time seeing the fret markers, the dots on the side. With that though, you don't really have an issue. So that's something that you can look at probably doing as a modification to your guitar. I think that would be pretty cool. Alonzo says, the fret markers are always a little issue on the side because they're smaller, right? You can't really see them all that well. And sometimes they're, depending on the material of your fretboard or your neck, kind of blends in. So it fools the eye a little bit. So maybe you can try that. That's something I always wanted to try. And I never got around to doing anything like that on any of my guitars, but maybe eventually I'll probably do it. So Jimmy Z says it's purple and blue fade. Yeah, that's what I kind of imagined. I'm sure it's pretty cool. Probably looks really wicked. A nice upgrade. So now what are you going to do with your other body? You're just going to keep it or perhaps paint it or turn it into something else? Sell it? Turd Ferguson says, play the Sir. Why do you want me to play the Sir specifically, Turd? What's going on? You like that guitar? Yeah, it's actually a very sweet guitar. A guitar I never regret buying, actually. I'm glad I picked it up. I've been considering putting the Sir back to its original format. When I bought that guitar, it had a humbucker and 2 single coils. I switched out that pickguard. I took that pickguard off the Sir and replaced it with 2 humbuckers just to see, if I like that a little bit better. It's actually a great sound, but lately I've been thinking about returning it back to stock. So I don't know. I might eventually do that. I like to keep all of the parts that I take off of guitars that are original. keep them. I never get rid of them because you never know when you want to return it back to stock, you know. So I've been thinking about doing that. Let's see here. Dan Gorman is here. Marcel Leblanc is here. He says, I bought better glasses. So hopefully I look better and not worse, Marcel, now that you have better glasses. You know, when you buy new glasses, it's weird because you notice things you haven't noticed before. You know what I mean? Dust in weird places, spider webs that you didn't really notice before, all that kind of thing. So, yeah, I know how that is. Presley says you can use the hardened PSA plastic. Maybe I'll try it. Maybe I'll mess around with that and see how it works. I usually like bone. When it comes to nut material, I usually prefer bone. So I don't usually like plastic all that much, but it's something I might try just for giggles. We'll see. J. Paul's here. Hey, J. Paul, what's going on, dude? And Jean-Pierre says, the third, ? The third what? Sorry, JP, I'm not following. Jimmy Z says, eventually gonna EVHI's the other body, poly white and black, probably, I guess, white and black stripe, then buy another neck and build that project out. It's always really cool to have a project guitar on the side to keep you busy. I still have my Dragon Jimmy Page Telecaster. That is one of my projects that I'm going to build. It's still working out. I haven't had an opportunity. It's been very, very short on time the last little while, so I haven't really worked on it. But it's something that I'm looking forward to actually putting together very soon. And it's going to be a fun project, I can already tell. So once I start working on that project, you'll probably be seeing some updates on how that's going. J. Paul says, put Nazgul rails on the Epi Les Paul Custom. And he says, love him. Nazgul rails. I haven't actually, I don't know too much about those. Let me just take a quick look. I like to keep up to speed with all the latest, especially if there's stuff I haven't heard of before. Nazgul rail. Let me see here. Oh, the Seymour Duncans. Yeah. I get you. How do you like him, J. Paul? A lot of feedback I've had on the single coil rail pickups. A lot of people feel like they're a little bit too aggressive sounding. So I'm wondering how these sound to you. They look cool. I'm going to have to take a look at some sound samples on those. So what made you decide to go with those? Marcel says, I was making a joke in reference to better seeing in side dots. I get you. So change the glasses and you'll see your side dots better. Yeah. JP says the third Ferguson. It's turd, not third. Turd. T-U-R-D. Yeah. And J. Paul says, good to see you, Tony. Love the Saturday night slot. Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. I don't think we're going to get as many people pop in tonight than like we usually do on our Sunday morning slot because people are used to that time slot. But it's okay. I figured, it's good to have the opportunity to catch a few new people on the evening side of things. It is a funny name. I agree with you, turd. And J. Paul says the real version of the Nazgul, lots of mids, mid voice, very hot, tight low end, but I love him. So what kind of music do you play with that particular pickup, J. Paul? I assume that's more for probably, you know, palm muted, chunky playing, that type of thing, I would assume. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I wanted to mention to you guys a couple of things. I noticed that, well, one thing is my last video, I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to watch that video or not, but I had reviewed these Audio Go products, which are quite interesting. They're little portable Bluetooth microphones that you can connect to your phone and you can record with in pretty much any situation. Very small, compact little devices. Interesting idea. It's an interesting concept, and I like them a lot. I didn't think, you know, they'd be as practical as I found them to be, but, you know, if you're playing in a band situation, for example, and you want to record the music that you're playing with, you can bring a Tascam recorder or something like that. But these little guys are pretty cool because you can record directly to your phone, and you can have more than one going at the same time. So for example, if you're, you know, recording a live jam, you can have one in one corner, another one in another edge of the room, and then mix the sound together and you know, play around with the audio that way. And if you can record to your phone, then you can just download the audio clip and edit it in your regular software or DAW. So it's pretty handy for many different types of things. They do extremely well on acoustic guitar, on voice and whatnot, but I wanted to specifically try them out on you know, miking up an amplifier, because I just wanted to make sure they can handle the volume levels, because sometimes a lot of these little devices don't do very well when things get very loud. And I tried to do that with my Princeton reverb that I have back here, and that's what I used. It sounded very bright, but I was also, I had things dialed in a little bit bright on the amplifier as well. But they held their own. They didn't fall apart, or I didn't have a lot of distortion or anything like that. So they work really well for recording loud instruments as well. So if you're interested in getting one specifically for that reason, you can rest assured that they will work. J. Paul says the Nazgul Gull rails are Alnico 8s. They got some bite. It suits my setup. High gain thrash metal. That's what I figured they would be. Alnico 8s are pretty strong magnets. I'm not really sure if the Alnico 8s are stronger than ceramic magnets or not, but they're pretty much up there. Let me do a quick little search. I'm curious. So according to Seymour Duncan, they say that ceramics are more sizzly on top and have a more scooped bottom. A8s have plenty of top and bottom, but the bottom is much thicker with more low ends. So that's the difference between the Alnico 8s and the ceramics. And a lot of people diss ceramic ceramic magnets for pickups. They're like, you know, ceramic magnets are cheap, and you know, only cheap pickups use ceramic magnets. That's not necessarily true. I've tried some very, very good sounding humbuckers that had ceramic magnets in them, and they sounded great. So it's just one element of a pickup, you know, so it's not just the magnet that will give the pickup its sound, but it does influence the sound a lot. So you can make a good sounding ceramic pickup and one that doesn't sound that great. I've never owned any pickups that have Alnico 8s in them. The strongest magnets I usually will experiment with are Alnico 5s, and I like those a lot. But I haven't had the opportunity to put an Alnico 8 pickup in any of my guitars yet. So I might get around to doing that at one point and just seeing what it can do myself. Let's see here. Mark's gas station is here. He says, greetings, Tony and everyone. Hey, Mark, what's happening, dude? Anything new on your end, Mark? Staying out of trouble? I hope everything's good. So Billy Joel, we all know Billy Joel, the piano man. He's announced that he's doing a 2025 stadium tour. And he's not going to be doing it alone. He's going to be doing that with Sting, Stevie Nicks, and Rod Stewart all together. So that's going to be an interesting opportunity to see him. I've never actually seen Billy Joel in concert live, but you know, he's been around for such a long time. He's an icon of music, and you know, he seems like a really interesting character. Now, we don't usually talk about piano players on Addicted to Gear, but I just wanted to throw that out there, considering he's going to be playing along with Sting and Stevie Nicks and Rod Stewart. So that should be an interesting concert to catch if you're interested in that kind of music. If not, we can just skip it. Rod Stewart's still alive. Yeah, indeed. He's still kicking. You know, when you have the good life, lots of partying, women, alcohol, all that good stuff, it keeps you fresh. That's the secret to longevity, you know. But anyway, the just if anybody's interested, those shows are kicking off in February, and the tour dates will be announced soon, I guess. They say that he's going to be playing like Toronto, Detroit, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, New York, and other places along the way as well. And the other artists are just going to be joining him for select dates along the way. So they're not going to be with him all the time. They're just going to be with him from time to time. So should be interesting. Yeah. All right. One other thing I wanted to say, and this is good news in my opinion, because I'm a fan. Our good friend Billy Idol has finally been named, I guess, or inducted, or going to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's been around for a long time. Everybody knows Billy Idol. You know, he's got his attitude, this snarl, and all that good stuff. And of course, you know, his sidekick, Steve Stevens, probably one of my favorite guitarists. Amazing player, great sound, and down-to-earth guy. I think he's been by Billy Idol's side from the get-go. And now he's going to be inducted, so I think that deserves a little congratulations. I don't know when the actual ceremony is going to happen, but it's supposed to be happening soon, so should be interesting. Maybe we can catch some videos of that when it actually goes down, and can see what the event looks like as it happened at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So congratulations to Billy. Good news. Paul's here. Hey, Paul, what's happening? He says better late than never. Yeah. Glad you could make it, man. All right, so let's get into some chat about interesting new stuff. Jean-Pierre says I should talk about the new Led Zeppelin documentary. The first authorized documentary about the group. Becoming Led Zeppelin is the name of the actual documentary. I haven't seen it yet, but it's out there. I don't know if anybody here had the opportunity to watch it yet. The initial feedback that I got is that it's good, but it doesn't actually have a lot more insight into the band that we may not have already seen before. So it's if you're expecting something completely new and different, you know, you might be disappointed, because I think ultimately the band has been under the microscope for so many years that a lot of the material that's been recorded, a lot of the video or film that's been recorded on the band has been used already in one manner or another. So you're not necessarily going to see stuff you've never seen before, especially if you're a Led Zeppelin fan like I am. But I still want to watch it. I still want to see it. And just I can't get enough of Led Zeppelin, man. You know, it's I just get drawn in, and I like to see all this good stuff. And you know, even if I've seen it before, it just gets me hyped up. So I'm looking forward to it. Another documentary I wanted to talk a little bit about also is Norm's Rare Guitars. Apparently, it's out on Netflix, and I wasn't able to see it because I'm in Canada, and for whatever reason, it's not available in Canada yet. Now, I had actually downloaded the video when I was in Florida last week because I had the intention of watching it, but I realized when I got back to Canada that Netflix won't allow you to watch the stuff even if you downloaded it to your device. I thought that wouldn't be an issue, but apparently they still block it somehow because they can see that you're not in the US. So I was a little disappointed that I wasn't able to watch that because I was looking forward to seeing that. Have any of you out there watched that one? And if maybe you guys don't know who Norm is, but Norm runs a very famous guitar shop called Norm's Rare Guitars, and a lot of famous musicians, you know, deal with him and go into the shop looking for vintage gear. And he always has really, really cool stuff. They've been putting out videos on his YouTube channel for a long time as well. So if you're into vintage guitars, that's one channel you should follow because there's always very interesting things. People like Joe Bonamassa often show up there. At one point, who else? I saw many other pretty famous people go into the store, and you know, some of them have even been on video with Norm and done some playing with him. It's always cool to see what he comes up with in terms of gear. Really nice guitars. Guys, before we get too deep into the weeds, if you don't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would appreciate it. We have 31 people here tonight, 28 thumbs up already, and I appreciate all 28 of those. If you haven't already given us a thumbs up, I would appreciate it. And once again, we're here on Saturday night just because I wanted to change things up a little bit. So don't be alarmed. Tomorrow I won't be on our usual Sunday morning slot. I'll try my best to be back next Sunday at 10:30 a.m. But for now, it's going to be tonight. So enjoy the session tonight. Lay back, play your guitar, or just, you know, maybe some of you are already in bed and just watching there. That's fine. It's all good. Don't be shy to comment, all right? Presley says, I fell asleep during the Norms movie. You did, huh? So it was a little slow for your liking. The pace wasn't as quick. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I still want to watch it. Yeah, if I had a VPN, Jim, I could probably watch it, but I don't have a VPN. I don't feel like spending money on a VPN either. So I'll just wait for it to be released in Canada. I guess eventually it will be. John says, the Guess Who, best Canadian rock group of all times. They must be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Hi, Tony. Regards from Lima, Peru. I don't know if the Guess Who are in. I'm not sure. And is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame restricted to American artists? Let's see. Another Google search here. The Guess Who is in the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, but they have not been nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You see? So I was right. I guess maybe they're shunning Canadians. But they are in the Canadian Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I didn't even know we had a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, to be honest with you guys. That's how much I know. Well, they should be in the Hall of Fame. They've done a lot of great stuff. Actually, now that I mentioned, now we're on the subject of documentaries. There's a great documentary that is just about how many of the songs that the Guess Who came out with how they came about, how they were conceived, what happened during the writing of some of that music. And it was really, really interesting. Randy Bachman was the one in that documentary, and he was actually playing the songs. So he's on stage, he's telling the stories about how the songs came about, each one of the hits, and then he goes on and plays the song right then and there. A really, really good documentary. Not really a documentary, I'm going to call it a rockumentary, if you want to call it that. Really, really great playing, and he's really a good storyteller. So if you're into the Guess Who, and even if you're not into the Guess Who, you should watch that movie. I don't remember what it's called, but I'm sure if you do a search, you'll be able to find it. Really cool knowing the background of how the song came about. Yes, David, you're right. Rush is in the Hall of Fame, so how come the Guess Who isn't? But it did take Rush a heck of a long time to get into the Hall of Fame. So I don't know if they made an exception or what, but something's going on there. Jack says he went and he saw the Guess Who in '93. I haven't ever seen the Guess Who at all. I would have loved to, though. Paul says this week was a delivery of a 120 watt Fozzy V3 mono amp and an N audio passive audio controller. Acts as a master volume between the amp and the Friedman IRX, all balanced in and out. Works killer. So you're still squeezing all the juice out of that Friedman IRX, it looks like. It's cool that you're experimenting with how far you can go with it like that. And a lot of people have indicated that the IRX is really a really solid piece of gear. I haven't actually bought one. I don't really feel I need it at this stage, but it has kind of caught my attention. I had to talk myself off of the ledge this week. I was looking at a couple of things in terms of amplifiers. I realized that I've never actually owned a Vox amp, and I was kind of curious, and I was kind of getting a little bit of gas for a Vox amp. I figured maybe it might be something that I should own. So I started watching some videos and looking at the different versions and models and stuff. And although the Vox amp is pretty cool, after watching all those videos, I kind of figured it probably would not be the right amp for me. So I talked myself off the shelf on that one. But then I started looking at some other amplifiers, including a relatively new Brunetti amplifier, the Mercury 1. Brunetti has a really amazing amplifier called the Mercury, but it's very expensive. It's got all the bells and whistles and sounds amazing. But they recently came out with a smaller version of that amplifier called the Mercury. And I'm a big fan of the Brunetti amps. I think Brunetti makes great stuff. So I was considering maybe going for something like that. But then I'm like, maybe it's a little bit too close to my Brunetti Plexi Man, and I shouldn't necessarily spend the money just yet. So I kind of held off on that, So, as you start accumulating more gear, it gets harder and harder to determine like what else you can bring in to fill in any of the smaller gaps, because then there is a lot of overlap that starts to happen. So that's like a good thing, or maybe a bad thing at the same time. Cool Tunes says, feels like Sunday morning. Yeah, I agree, Cool Tunes. But I'm tired, But I wake up tired on Sunday morning too, so it kind of feels the same. I'm glad you caught it, man. I'm glad you stumbled across it. It's always good to have you here. Dinger Smith says, hello from London. Hey, welcome. A couple of new names today. That's always good. We sure do love our gears, Jimmy. Wayne says he cranked a lot of BTO as a teenager. They were great. They still are. A lot of those songs have done really well over time. They haven't really aged badly. You know, there's some songs where some artists that you listen to as a kid, you know, you listen to those songs today and they're like, yeah, they kind of sound dated. But the BTO stuff still sounds good. It's still, you know, it's kind of timeless. So Dinger Smith says, does a Vox Pathfinder Base 10 count as owning a Vox amp? Well, it is Vox, but I'm not sure it's going to count towards your guitarist points. Anybody else own a Vox amp here? Jack says he loves his Vox amp. Which one do you have, Jack? Jimmy Z says he's been extremely gaseous lately. For what, Jimmy? Anything in particular? Cool Tune says my Bulgara V22 is similar to the Vox. Cool Tune says, Tony, what Anna pins on the chopping block? What? And pins what? I don't know what that word means, Cool Tunes. Please clarify. David says Randy Bachman recently had a stolen guitar returned to him after many years. It was in Japan. Yeah, I read that story. Happened a while ago now, and it was a really cool story. For those of you that don't know, Randy is a big fan of the Gretsch guitar, and he had a Gretsch guitar that he used while he was touring with the Guess Who, and it basically was his favorite guitar, and he would like really take care of it in the sense where he used to tell stories that he used to have his when he would stay in hotel rooms, to make sure it didn't get ripped off, he would chain the guitar and case to the toilet so that people, you know, wouldn't walk away with the guitar. Anyways, long story short, eventually that guitar disappeared. It got stolen, and it was gone. He was heartbroken, and he kept on buying Gretsch guitars to try and find a guitar that felt and played like his favorite one. And I think he accumulated over 200 or more Gretsch guitars, but none of them felt like that one. And it's funny because there were pictures of his guitar floating around on the internet, and somebody used artificial intelligence to be able to match his guitar, the grain on his guitar, to another guitar, another Gretsch guitar that was floating around in Japan. And they accurately identified it as his guitar. And so then they started the process of trying to get in touch with the owner of said guitar in Japan. They actually managed to get in touch with him, told him the story, and eventually met up with him. And the deal was, I think the deal was that that Randy would offer the owner of the other Gretsch guitar any one of his Gretsch guitars as compensation for returning his stolen guitar, and maybe money, I don't know. But he ended up giving it back to him, and it got returned to him after so many years, which is a crazy story if you think of it. You know, that the guitar ended up halfway across the world, and still they managed to find it. So it's interesting how a lot of these missing guitars actually turn up over time. I think I need a little lozenge. I'm gonna What is this? This is some kind of I don't know what this is. All right. Cool Tune says a typo. What was the word you were trying to type there? Jack says he has the Valvetronics 30 amplifier. How do you like the Valvetronics? That's a hybrid, right? If I'm not mistaken. Valve and solid state together. If you're asking which guitar is on the chopping block, I haven't really decided which one, but I think there might be more than one. I'm waiting till springtime. That's usually when I'll probably be liquidating a few of my my guitars. The problem is this, guys. It's that, you know I like to modify my guitars. I don't leave well enough alone. If there's a guitar that is underwhelming sometimes and it just needs new pickups or a little adjustment or maybe new tuners or a bridge or something like that, I'll put in the time and effort to upgrade the guitar. And then when I do that, generally, I bring it up to the next level. So at that point, I don't feel like getting rid of it anymore because it's actually a decent guitar. So I accumulate a lot of these sort of budget guitars that, are out of the box, not amazing, but I'm able to make them better. So basically, at that stage, when you put in the effort to improve the guitar, you kind of don't want to sell them anymore. And to be honest, I think a lot of people that buy guitars are not necessarily interested in buying a guitar that's been modified. So then I would have to kind of bring it back to stock before selling it, which is time consuming as well. So that's a question I have for you guys out there. I mean, would you hesitate to buy a guitar that's been modified? A used guitar, let's say, that's been modified. Would you skip over a guitar like that? Or are you the type of person that doesn't really care? You'll buy a guitar, if it looks good and, even if it's been modified, you'll buy it anyway. Just curious to see what you guys think about that. I know there's a lot of people that are quite picky and they want to have the guitar stock, showroom condition. They don't want to have any dings or anything like that, especially in the guitar. But they don't like it if, pickups have been swapped out or things have been changed. So I'm curious what you guys think. Jimmy Z says, just in general, however, it's funny. I've been thinking about looking at one of those Vox Valvetronic modeling amps. I love modeling amps. Fender are my thing, GTX 50 and 100, and even the LT 50. A lot of people are getting into those modeling amplifiers, solid state modeling amplifiers these days, because you can do a lot with a product that's not very expensive, and generally they sound pretty good. So you don't necessarily have to go crazy if you're just playing at home. And those modeling amps do cover a lot of bases. Johnny Guitar 57 says he had a Vox AC15, sold it to the original Beatlemania guitarist who played John Lennon in the band. Now he's in Strawberry Fields Beatles band. Why did you get rid of it? Seems like it's doing the job if they're using it on the shows and everything like that. You didn't like the Vox tone, or was there some other reason why you decided to get rid of that guitar? Dewey. Hey, Dewey. What's happening, man? He says, the gas got me this week. I picked up a new UA Delverb. Very nice pedal. It replaced my Keeley Caverns. Very nice. Yeah, the UA makes amazing stuff. I haven't owned the Delverb specifically, but I have checked out a lot of, the UA products, and they never disappoint. So I'm sure you're a happy camper. Jean-Pierre says the Vox made special amps for the 1965 Beatles show at Shea Stadium. They were 100 watts. Yeah, I remember that. 100 watts, and they were still not loud enough. All you can hear was those girls screaming. I remember them saying that they couldn't even hear themselves playing. At that time, they didn't really have PA systems, so the amplifiers were basically the main sound that you would get on stage. So the amps had to be loud, but they weren't loud enough. I mean, don't forget, you're playing in a stadium. So I don't think the girls that were there really cared about the music all that much. They were just happy to be there with the band. Dinger Smith says, do you think the popularity of amps is dying out because of all the amp sims and AI going on? I do. Unfortunately, I do. I do think that we're getting to the age where there's a lot of musicians that are playing in their house, that are not necessarily playing live or in front of an audience. They don't really need an amplifier, to be honest. And a lot of the devices that they're coming out with today will do the job. So amps are expensive. If you want to go out and buy a tube amplifier today, you're going to be spending a decent tube amplifier. You're looking at about $2,000, right? I mean, it used to be that you can get a Fender Deluxe. Used to be you can get one for like $800 back in the day. Now you can't get one for, even used, for under like $1,500 here in Canada. So brand new, they're pushing $2,000. And if you want to get something boutique or something that's really good, like a Friedman or something else, they're over $2,000. So you can easily get some kind of multi-effects or all-in-one transistor amp, like a Katana or something else that has simulations of other amplifiers in it. That'll do the job for home use. You don't need anything more than that. Look, I have amplifiers here, but I also have things like the FM9 from Fractal, the Trident here that I showed a couple of times from Nuix, and other multi-effects units and stuff like that. Even stuff like this, these little things, this little Nuix device that you can play your guitar through. I mean, there's a place for every device, every piece of gear. And even though I have expensive amplifiers, I still play through those things sometimes, depending on what I'm trying to do. You don't always need an amp. And to be honest with you, a lot of the software, the stuff that you can play through on your computer, is getting very, very good. The sounds are becoming very, they're getting there, man. I don't think you'll be dissatisfied with some of that stuff. Shane wanted to know, do you have many guitars with shimmed necks? No, I don't. I offhand, I might have like one, maybe two, but not more than that. I've been pretty lucky with my guitars where I didn't necessarily have to mess with the angle of the neck all that much. But a lot of guitars do have shims in there. You'll get them even off the store walls. Sometimes you pull the neck off the guitar and you'll see a little shim in there. I don't know if they made a documentary of it regarding the stolen Gretsch, but there is a video out there on YouTube where he's talking about it. So you can find that out there. Jack says, yes, Tony, it's a valve and tube guitar. Yeah, more and more people are coming out, more and more companies are coming out with these hybrid designs now. Cushman wants to know, does your Marshall head come in a 50 watt? It is 50 watts. So yeah, it does. Dingersmith says, if it's a $5,000 Les Paul and it's been messed up and lost value because of it, then I would not invest in it. Yeah, I think most people will look at a mod. If they're buying a used guitar and it's been modified, if it's something simple, like the pickups have been swapped out, that's fine. If it's more cosmetic, you know, if it's been repainted or, you know, maybe the pick guard has been swapped out and whatnot, it really bothers me when I don't like to see a guitar where the pick guard has been swapped out and then there's a whole bunch of new holes screwed in the body because the new pick guard doesn't have the screw holes in the right place. When you pull it out and it starts looking like Swiss cheese, that really bothers me. Even on my guitars, if I want to change the pick guards, I generally try to get a pick guard where the holes match, so I don't have to make new holes or drill new holes and stuff like that. So if I'm buying a guitar and it's been modified, let's say it's been painted, usually I won't buy that. You know, especially if it's an expensive guitar, like a Fender, a Fender Strat or a Telecaster, Gibson Les Paul, something like that. I won't necessarily buy it because it's very difficult to paint the guitar properly and do a good job. And if it's a refin, you're generally going to lose money on that guitar if you want to sell it eventually after that, because a lot of people are not necessarily going to be interested in it. So I'll probably skip. If it's just pickups have been swapped out, no big deal. I can handle that myself. It's easy to change pickups. And as long as they haven't chopped up anything in the body to make the pickups fit, you know. For example, I have seen guitars like, Fender Strats where they try and fit a humbucker in the guitar. And the guitar has been routed for single coil, so they route out or, chip away at the routing of the bridge pickup. That's no good. Nobody likes to see that in their guitars. So that's something I would not buy. Just me. That's how I feel about it. Alonzo's here. He says, I'm visiting with in-laws and I brought my Enya Next G. It satisfies my need to pluck around while away from home. No amps and has all the tones I need. I did a review on that guitar, Alonzo. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a nice travel guitar. Like, I get what you're saying. That's why I have that one too. It's in case I want to travel with it. It's easy to do. It's fun to play. You don't have to worry about it all that much. J. Paul says, I'm playing a tube amp to a modeler with a tube amp emulated out to my interface into a DAW with some plugins and out of my monitors with 4 total 12 Celestians. Sounds like quite a setup, J. Paul. Shane says, my new Telecaster Deluxe has a 3-screw neck plate. Does that mean that it has a tilt too? You would have to look, Shane. If it has a little hole in the neck plate, then you probably have a micro adjust screw in there. But if you have a shim in there, that seems odd. So just take a look. ABY is the splitter pedal. I get you. Let's see. I'm just scrolling down. Presley says, my favorite Strat has a micro tilt. I feel like the micro tilt was a good idea that Fender came out with at the time, so you wouldn't have to put in a shim. But some people don't like it. Paul says the Friedman Vox AC30 is expected out this year. So you're saying I should wait? I don't know if I will eventually ever own an AC30 or a Vox amplifier, Paul. I don't know. It's like I want one just because I don't have one, not because I really need one. Jimmy Z says, for my sound, the Fender modelers are amazing. Turn the dial and get what I want, my settings, and they sound amazing with my sound. I don't have time to screw with tube amps and that wall of sound. Yeah, sometimes if you're a musician that doesn't want to mess around with things, then things like that are easy peasy. Set it and forget it, because you can jump down the rabbit hole if you want to try and get into something that's pretty complicated, like a fractal or something like that. You'll end up spending a lot of time messing around with your sounds. David says, I would hesitate to buy a modified guitar. I can't be sure the work was done right. Dings, I don't mind. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. It depends on what was modified. If a bridge was taken out or something was added to the guitar that you can't remove easily, that's going to cause problems. I would just avoid that. Good evening, Vox. What's happening? Profile Production says, I made it. Paul says, I would buy a modified guitar, but I will not pay for those mods as I want my own mods. Well, that's the other thing. You bring up a good point there, Paul. Because a lot of people, when you're shopping around for a guitar and it's been modified, I would not necessarily pay extra for the mods. To me, I would almost say like, okay, the guitar is not in original condition anymore. I'm willing to pay you X amount for the guitar minus the mods, because to me, the mods are not a plus. The mods are something I'm going to have to rework. You know what I mean? So in my eyes, it's almost like the guitar is worth less, not more. Now, if somebody's spending a lot of money on mods or maybe putting in something that's higher quality, that's a different story. But then, as you said, if it's not done right, you can put in really good quality gear in there. Doesn't necessarily make it better if the job hasn't been set up the way it should. J. Paul's going to bed. He says, good night, everyone. I gotta get some sleep. Been plowing snow for 2+ days. Yeah, and it's not over yet, J. Paul. So yeah, get your rest. You're gonna need it, man. Tomorrow's gonna be another one of those days. Dewey7330 says, I'm playing through a DSL 40 CR right now. I love it. Underestimated, in my opinion. The clean channel is very good. Those DSLs sold like hotcakes. A lot of people have them. A lot of people have hung on to those amplifiers, and they still love them. So yeah, I think you're right. A lot of people do like them. Another question I had for you guys out there is that, in your opinion, do you feel like vintage gear is really better than modern gear? I've been thinking about that for a while now, and it's like, in my opinion, you know what? Like, I like the fact that you have the vintage gear mojo. If you want to go out and buy a really old guitar, a vintage amplifier, something like that, it's cool, right? I get that. But is it better? And I've come to realize that in many cases it's not better. A lot of the older instruments were kind of hit and miss. You got to kiss a lot of frogs to find a good one. Not to say that there aren't any good vintage instruments out there. I'm sure there are, but they're hard to find, and a lot of them are not as good as you think they would be just because they're vintage. One thing I know for sure, and this is a fact, is that a lot of the older vintage amplifiers are going to be duds. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of the older amplifiers haven't been well maintained. People think that, you know, you can just buy an old amplifier and it's going to sound just as good as the day it was built, which isn't true, because all the components, the value of the components are going to shift. You could have noise issues. So you're going to have to go through that with a fine-tooth comb and replace all of the components that are not up to spec. You're going to have somebody that knows what they're doing do that for you, which is going to cost a lot of money. Even the boards that were in the early, like let's say you go out and you buy yourself a very old Fender Deluxe that, you know, you can see selling used sometimes for $4,000 to $5,000 because they're old. If that guitar hasn't been updated, it's not going to sound good. Case in point, Mr. Rivera himself, who's an expert at building amplifiers, Paul Rivera, you guys must have heard that name floating around. He's worked on a lot of older Fender amplifiers for artists, well-known artists, and he'll completely rebuild them. He'll take an old one, and the first thing he'll do is he'll strip the boards, he'll wash the board, those boards, the defect in those boards was that they absorb moisture and they absorb contaminants, right? So let's say you live someplace by the ocean. You get salt in the air, that kind of thing. It's going to seep into the board. And when it does that, it causes interference between components. And that's something that you can't get away with. It's just because those boards were never sealed properly back in the day. Now they use a whole bunch of things to seal the boards. Modern amplifiers are made in a different way where the boards are completely sealed. So what he would do is he would strip the boards, wash them, he would wax the boards. He would actually put them in his oven for many days at low temperatures to dry them out completely. Then he would wax the boards and completely reinstall all the components and rebuild those old amplifiers to get them up to spec. And, you know, that's basically what you're going to have to do in most scenarios. So nobody's going to do that generally. So if you buy yourself an old Marshall, an old Fender, or something like that, it ain't going to work the way it should be. If you do all that work and you have somebody that knows what they're doing do it for you, I'm sure it's going to sound great, but it requires a lot of time and attention and money to get it there. So that's why I strongly believe that, you know, vintage is not always better. The stuff that they're building today is really high quality most of the time. Vinny's World says, I'm not a fan of vintage gear at all. It's like buying something with latent defects, but signing away all rights to those defects. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have very many old guitars. I mean, the guitars that are old because I bought them back in the day and I've held on to them, you know, so they can be 20 or 30 years old or whatever it is. But, you know, they're not necessarily vintage in my opinion, not yet anyway. Some people might think differently. If a guitar is like how old does a guitar have to be before it's considered vintage? Is it 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? What's the magic number? Dewey says, I only played one vintage guitar. There was a 73 Strat. I don't think it was as good as my American Pro 2. I think you're right. The manufacturing process that they're using today is very good, both for guitars and for amplifiers. And I think they wildly outperform the methods that they used back in the day when they were still building stuff by hand. Hand wired is like one of those mojo things. Everybody's like, oh, but you know, the amplifier's better because it's hand wired. Doesn't necessarily mean it's better. In many cases, it means it's probably more likely to have, you know, defects. cold solder joints or solder joints that haven't been done properly. People are not machines. They're not perfect. When you're building a guitar amplifier with modern equipment today, you can reproduce board after board after board with very little defects or issues. So Vinny's World says that's the hard part. Some people say 25 years, but then that's 2000 now. I don't even think of 90s guitars as vintage. Yeah, it depends on your age, right? Us older guys, we were around in those days. To me, vintage is before I was born. I was born in 1969. So for me, if it's, close to that age, close to that year, that's vintage for me, 1970, I guess I can consider that to be vintage as well. But, I tend to want to see higher numbers there when it comes to considering a guitar or instrument as being vintage. David says a couple of sources I found say between 20 and 100 years. 20 is a little low, I would say. But yeah, I guess you can start thinking about something being vintage in 1920. Yeah, 1969, Dean. Magic number. All right, should we look at the poll question, guys? It's getting to be almost 11 o'clock. I think it's time. Let's have a look. Let me pull that up there. And it's funny that YouTube's making it harder to find stuff. They move things around sometimes. All right, so the poll question for today was, has "it's too loud," in quotation marks, become the norm for you? In other words, do you find yourself itching or looking at amplifiers and other sources of guitar entertainment that is not as loud anymore? I think a lot of us are. I think, a lot of us don't need those 100-watt amps anymore. A lot of people don't need even 50-watt amps anymore, and we're looking at lower volume items. So the poll question has 68 votes, and the number one answer, the options were, well, I'll just tell you what in order of highest score here. So the number one answer is depends on the venue and the mix. 63% of you selected that as your preferred answer. Number two is yes, my ears can't take it anymore. 22% of you say it's too loud, it's just too loud. Third, no way, louder is always better. 12% of you have selected that as your answer. So there's still some people out there that like to feel their pants flapping in the wind when they're standing in front of their amplifier. I get it. And only 3% of you have selected other. Explain in the comments. And one of the comments states, and this is our own Marcel that says this: I don't play for others and I'm half deaf, so it's a little loud if I forget to put my hearing aid, but normally I'm quiet and nobody has complained in the building so far. As I keep saying, I can't play at all, just some slow pentatonics and following poorly online lessons I paid for. My poor excuse, I'm suffering from tendonitis and arthritis in both hands. So basically, a lot of people out there basically don't need the volume anymore. So that being said, I think that goes back to one of the first questions or first topics we talked about. Are amplifiers or sales of amplifiers slowing down? And I think they are. For that reason, I think a lot of people just realize that they don't need all that stuff and they can easily play their instruments at home at lower volume levels, and it's fine. And they can still enjoy playing their instrument. So however you like to do it, whether you like to do it with a 100-watt amplifier or just through, you know, an unplugged guitar, as long as you're playing your guitar, that's the most important thing. And we want to make sure that that continues as much as possible. All right, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up now, unless there's any other questions that I missed here. I don't think. I'm just going through some of the comments here. If there's any last minute questions you want to get in before we sign off, please go ahead and put it into the comment section there. I'll be happy to answer them before we log off. Otherwise, I do appreciate everyone stopping by. I appreciate you guys giving us the thumbs up and encouraging the Saturday night live show. And if you guys do like having an evening show from time to time, let me know. We can definitely try to accommodate that in the future. Otherwise, we're going to move it back to our morning slot, which is Sunday morning. And you guys could tune in there. And please don't forget to subscribe if you've joined in to this live show for the first time and you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button so that you can join in on any future shows, and at the same time you'll be notified whenever I post a video on the channel reviewing some gear. So I highly recommend you guys stay tuned for those as well. All right, guys, I really appreciate it. I enjoyed spending time with you this evening, and I guess it's time to say bye. So hang in there, guys. We'll be back in about a week on our Sunday show, and in the meantime, keep on rocking. Make sure those fingers are moving and get the most out of your gear, because there's nothing better than playing guitar. We all know that. I appreciate you guys stopping in. See you all soon. Have a great rest of the week.